my friends. I wanted to share a little bit of my journey with you today. I spent many years of my life searching for something or someone to fill an empty, longing place in my heart. It was a place that so desperately needed to be loved and accepted and good enough. I'm wondering if you can relate. Did you ever feel a void in your heart that no matter how hard you tried, you just couldn't ever seem to satisfy it? Proverbs 19:22 says that what we desire is unfailing love. That word desire in the Hebrew means to greatly long for or crave. I want to share some examples with you this morning in the Word of a few people that may have been dealing with the same thing. Some of these examples are going to be obvious to you and you've heard them before, but let's see if there's a few that you hadn't thought of and maybe even a couple that you can relate with. The first one is Leah. Leah is longing for the love and acceptance of a man. We see the same thing happening with Samson. He was longing for the love and acceptance of a woman. We see Rachel feeling like she's going to die if she doesn't have a child. How about King Saul trying to fill that void within him with control? Or what about Martha in all of her busyness? I also thought about King Nebuchadnezzar and trying to fill that place with power and material possessions. This last one, I can so relate with her. It's Lot's wife. Longing for something that God has already called her out of, but her identity and security was tied to something in her past and she just can't seem to let go. I want you to hear my heart here. I'm not saying that wanting some of these things is wrong, but I am saying this: making them your source of fulfillment is. When we start to make people and things our source of fulfillment, we start to feel things like disappointment and rejection, and we start becoming wounded and offended. I want to challenge you today that when you start feeling these kind of things, to just take a step back and really check your own heart to see what you're making your source of fulfillment at that moment. A few years ago, I was really struggling with this, and I just kept making the same bad choices over and over again, and I just came up with the same results over and over, and sometimes even worse results. And I just started bringing it before the Lord and just really asking Him about it. I saw a vision of myself standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon, and I felt like the Lord said to me, "This represents the size hole in your heart that needs to be loved." And He said, "I did not create people and things to fill that in you." He said, "I am the only one that is capable of fulfilling that kind of a need in you." I want to read just a small part out of a book called A Confident Heart by Renee Swoop, and she talks about this a bit. And this is what she says: "You see, God put a longing for unfailing love in our hearts because He knew it would lead us back to Him. Only God's unfailing love will fill and fulfill the desires of our hearts. It is the deepest thirst of our souls. Until God's love is enough, nothing else will be." I want to ask you a question, and I want to ask you this question with all compassion and love in my heart, because I myself have had to answer this question also. Is there something or someone that you need to set free from being your source of fulfillment? I pray that you would be able to let go and instead be in hot pursuit of God's unfailing love for you. Jesus gives us a few beautiful examples in the Word of this unfailing love in action. I want to share some with you. We see His unfailing love calm His disciples' fears by commanding the wind and the waves to be still. We see this unfailing love bring forth provision the night that his disciples were out fishing all night long and caught absolutely nothing. But when he directed their nets, they came back full and overflowing. We see his unfailing love the night that he humbles himself and takes the position of a servant and washes his disciples' feet. I want you to remember that when he was doing that, he knew full well that one would betray him, one would deny him, and all 12 would abandon him. Yet at the end of John 13:1, it says, he loved them all to the very end. Of course, the ultimate example of his unfailing love is when, as an innocent man, he took on a brutal beating and suffered a horrible death on our behalf so that you and I could be redeemed and set free. Hosea 10:12 says, sow for yourselves righteousness, reap the fruit of unfailing love. I want to tell you something. Human love is going to fail you from time to time, but God's love never disappoints. If you want to experience this unfailing love that we're talking about today, I want to encourage you to invite him into everything that you say and do. Invite him into every decision that you make. Invite him into the deepest parts of your heart that no one else has access to. I want to speak over you today, Psalms 90, verse 14. May the Lord satisfy you this morning with his unfailing love, that you may sing for joy and be glad all your days. That word satisfy in the Hebrew means to fill to overflowing. So let me say it to you like this. May he fill you to overflowing with his unfailing love today, that you may sing for joy and be glad all your days. He is your only source of love that will never fail you. Thank you so much for joining me. I love you with all my heart. Have a wonderful day.
Unfailing love, unfailing love, unfailing love, unfailing love, never